The Hebrews arrived in Israel December 19th, 1969. That's the official date when the first group of 39 Hebrews entered into the country. I couldn't give the exact date or even, I don't remember the name because I wasn't here at the time. It had to be about 1970 or 1971 when this took place in Israel.
It was 1971. Incident took place here with a fella that got into a fight, and in that fight he was actually killed in 1971. No sickness, no old age, nothing like that. It was actually a fight.
Well, what propelled them to come and make this journey was the vision of building a kingdom, escaping the oppression and racism of America, and a movement to build a long-awaited kingdom of God on earth. This was their original vision, was to build, and not to be a religious movement or anything like that, but to go according to the guidelines set up in what we call the book we call the Bible, and to take our heritage and build according to the prophetic writings of the long-awaited kingdom of God on earth. This is what brought us here.
No, we actually came here to build a new life for ourselves, built upon the laws and instructions of the God of Israel. You see, the information that was disseminated to us in America, we believed and we could feel that. And living in America and feeling the whip of the master for all those years, certainly the information that the Hebrews were disseminating, Israel being our homeland, teaching us of our heritage, of our true selves, being children of God, and the true descendants and owners and inheritors of the land of Israel, certainly it was fitting. And all of the other information that is disseminated in the scriptures as to who we are as a people, and reestablishing our land, language, and our culture and our identity. So we came to establish that nation and that kingdom that was written about in the scriptures. I have absolutely no problem, because remember in the scriptures it says, do not make personage of trouble of other nation, because you was once, you understand, a slave in a foreign nation. So we have absolutely no problem with any other nation, Israelis living here. What our pleasure would be is to see all of them live according to the laws of God, so that they can be blessed as well as we. It's never been a personal thing. We were the ones that the Creator, in fact, gave His Spirit, and we were the one that He had given the instructions so that we could give it to the other nation so that they also could be blessed.
Well, in order to really understand the people of this land, you would have to live in this land. When it's written in history, in the prophetic books, it says, my house shall be a house of prayer for all people. Anyone that comes to this land and agrees to keep the laws of the God of this land is welcome in this land, whether they be stranger or not. We did not come here in search of identity. We knew exactly who we were when we left the shores of America. We didn't think, we didn't believe, we knew that we were Hebrews and that we were not Negroes. So we don't have any problem with anybody that's oppressed, been oppressed. This is not a racist movement. It's not black against white, yellow against red. But we, those who worship the God of Israel and agree to keep the guidelines and universal laws that He sat down, are welcome to dwell in this country. Well, when you look at this land, this is an ancient land, and nobody can really say that who is buried everywhere. The whole country is a graveyard. You have many. This is a land that's thousands of years old. When we look, you might find a burial site anywhere because you had different civilizations. There's a law that was passed in 1948 that said it's forbidden to remove any grave, to desecrate any grave in this land, because the dead have just as many rights as the living in this land. Therefore, that their integrity and their honor has to be respected upon the death, because there are many, many eras of historical data that has been recorded here. You may be unearthing something from the Byzantine Empire, the Nabatean Empire, the Greeks, the Romans, the Babylons, the ancient Israelites, the Egyptians, the Assyrians. All of these people are buried in this land. They don't know where the actual grave sites are in this land. Therefore, it's laws to protect those that have made transition on this path through the centuries, through the millenniums that have passed by. Therefore, it's forbidden for anybody to remove a grave or to build on top of a grave, because that's sacred ground, and it can go into contaminated ground if it's violated in any way.
In the laws that are concerning the burial, they are sanctioned by the Rabbinical society. These are the rabbis, the spiritual society. One of their major laws states that it is an abhorrent to see a deceased individual when you once knew him in their live, living beauty and glory. And upon that, they state in their law that they do not encourage and will not raise the dead remain, because it is a disrespect to the living and it is a disturbance to the rest of the dead. So they are not in no way, shape, form, or fashion willing to raise the dead. Even in the law, it states, if you want to relocate the remains of the deceased into an even better location, they're not willing to move that due to those reasons. That is it abhorrent to see a person that is in his decayed state, and it's a disturbance to the rest, even if you want to relocate the bodies into a new and better location.
Well, you have to report the death of anybody. If they die in a hospital, there's a record that's kept. And if they die in a home, it has to be reported so a death certificate can be issued, so the burial plot can be dug. And when the burial plot is dug, it's not like in the Western world where you have a what people call a repast or a wake. They used to call a wake, where you would make a transition on one day, and a few days later everybody would view the body. When you pass in this region of the world, whatever your faith is, they try to put you in the ground before the sun go down. There's no autopsy, there's no cremation, there's no coffin, that they wrap you in a linen cloth, they entomb the earth, they entomb it and they lay you in the earth. Your body goes back in the earth and they enclose it with concrete slabs, and then they put dirt over it so no animal can get to you from the top of the burial site. And this is how they bury you in this land. And it's preferably they try to do it on the same day that you transpire, that you pass away. They try to get you into the earth.
Yes, the Rabbinical Society here in Israel want to expedite the deceased being placed into the earth due to the spiritual aspects of those bones and the spiritual understanding. Placing the bones into shallow grave, as you would do in other nations, 6 feet and all that, they're not placed 6 feet deep. They're placed in a manner that the body can assimilate back into the earth expediently. So they don't go through the long process of having the body autopsied and trying to find out they're dead, because they're dead. So if the person deceased, he's deceased. That's good enough. They check, make sure that they're actually dead, the body's not living, and then they wrap it into like a cotton shroud and they place it into the earth in a manner that it can assimilate back into the ground.
They're just wrapped in a cloth, and they're laid in the earth to go back into the earth. Because we come from the earth, and our body consists of these minerals, so you go back into the earth again. This is how they lay you to rest in this region of the world.
The bottom of the area, the grave, is left open. But around the walls, once they dig the grave, around the walls, they use concrete blocks, and they lay those blocks in there, and then they place the body in a cotton cloth. And from there, they put concrete across the top, and this is to keep the animals from boring into the ground and eating up the flesh of the dead. And so all around four sides is concrete, and across the top is concrete. But the bottom is left open so that the cotton cloth and the body remain can disseminate it back into the ground. And on the top, that's where you put your headstone or whatever type of remembrance you want to put up there. They know they're not 6 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet. They don't go as deep as 6 feet. 3 meters, they don't go that deep. You're looking at maybe 3-4 feet, and that's it. They keep the grave into the topsoil. When you go too deep, you get into the clay of the earth, and that makes it difficult for that body to disseminate back into the ground.
Graves are not deep at all, maybe just a meter, maybe 3-4 feet deep. They're not 6 feet deep at all. You can dig a grave, and it's what they would call in the Western world a shallow grave. This is how they dig graves here, but they encase it so it's by not having a coffin, it's even more solid than the wooden or metal coffin, because it's actually concrete slabs that they lay over you that are perfectly cut. And no one can lift it up unless they have some strength. Certainly an animal couldn't lift it up. Yes.
Yeah, they cut them in a manner that once they seal them, it's similar to sarcophagus in Egypt. It's perfectly laid so there's no opening, no cracks, anything that the animals, anything from up top can disseminate, can get in there. Because the objective is to try to keep the smell of the decayed body from getting to the surface, which will draw the animals. So those slabs are perfectly cut to actually seal it. And once they put the dirt there, it's like make a sealed tomb.
The first desecration happened in our burial site when they laid the first refuge from the building materials from the City of Dimona, which was over 2 decades ago. This is when the first, because originally when they gave us this area, it was not a dump. It was adjacent to a dump that was meters away. But over a period of time, the city started encroaching closer and closer to our burial site. And this is when it became connected. They had 2 different types of refuge that they put there. If you study the film footage that we had, on the far right extremities was where they put the regular trash like paper, food waste, plastic bags, cans. But as we got closer to our area, they put building materials there. Concrete slabs, tiles off of floors and things like that. It was 2 different types of trash that we noticed through the years. And the city put it there. We had complained to the city about that, but they continued to put this refuge there, and their regentrification of the City of Dimona and the refuge, instead of carrying it out into the mountains, they used this area, and it was known that this was our burial site. when they did this?
First desecration happened when this trash from the dump that was next to our burial area began to encroach upon and cover up the graves. Over a period of time, the city, they dumped trash and it began to build and actually swell in the area that they dumped this trash. All type of trash from the city, mainly building materials, bricks, blacktop, concrete, trash in that area. And then it began to encroach upon the graves and just continued to grow. Nothing. We were not given instructions from the community leader because the community is ran by an individual, Benami, and he micromanaged the community. All decisions, and I mean all decisions are made and okayed by Benami. Nothing takes place in that community without his authorization. So this is what took place.
Well, absolutely nothing was done by the city at all. And we couldn't at that time take any legal action because we didn't have the proper status or identification to file even a lawsuit against the City of Dimona until 2003. We didn't have political rights or even the right to even work. We were still here on tourist visas after 30-odd years, 30-something years later, so we couldn't sue the city. We couldn't sue anybody because we didn't have the proper identification. If we go to sue somebody, they could arrest us and deport us. And this is one of the reasons why there were no markers on the graves, because we couldn't afford to pay for these markers because we didn't even have work permits to work.
Certainly. Now, one thing I do want to make perfectly clear, that we're not unjust, we're not imbalanced, we give credit where credit is due. I remember that Ben and Oman Kohen did an international press conference at the burial site, just those two individuals, because during those days we didn't have status and we could just freely move around. And so Ben, head of the community, and Oman Kohen, they did together at the burial site international press conference complaining about what was taking place in the burial ground. No, we couldn't as a people go out and hit the street and protest because we was dealing with another situation with our status, because we had been here so long, we didn't have status, we didn't have certification. So we literally was running and ducking and dodging, trying to maintain a position in the land. And in that situation, we were working and not getting paid. We would go out on jobs and then we would work hard and not get paid. This lady was run off with the money. So we didn't have the proper money. We didn't have enough money to buy the proper headstone. We didn't have enough money. We didn't even have status. So we was actually terra nullius. We was here and not here. But concerning that situation, Ben and Oman Kohen did go out and call all the press, the international press, and they made a major complaint that nothing is being done about this situation. No, we were just barely making it.
The original press conference that we held down there was on the 31st of October 1986. It was in a newspaper called the Ha'ir. We still have the photographs of that press conference that myself and Ben-Ami had at the burial site. As far as the materials to build a wall, I had went to Ben-Ami personally, myself and another priest named Boaz Akohen. We went to him in 1990 and we requested to build a wall around that area, and there was no problem about the materials because there was plenty of stones down there. All we needed was cement and the sand to mix together and build the wall. We even had several volunteers. We could have built that wall in a matter of days, but he said, and these are his words, "No, do not build a wall." Now I remember this very well because I was instrumental in burying up to 80% of those that were interned down there in that area. So I went down there many days, and I seen the situation that was beginning to develop in that area that was designated to us as the burial site. I seen the slow encroachment that they were moving toward us, and I seen the need for a wall to be built. Now this happened, and this was over 20 years ago, 24 years ago, when this request was made by the priest to build a wall around there, to cordon that area off.
Yes, the type of desecration that was taking place with the trash, it would have set up a barrier that even those that were dumping trash there couldn't have continued to do that. So a proper wall built would certainly stop that taking place.
But the trash would actually reach up to the wall and go all the way around it.
Yes, that trash would have reached to the wall, and the people could have seen that here's a wall there. You understand? And then depending on the depth, the width, the height of the wall, it could have certainly stopped that trash from coming into the graveyard. And this area that we're talking about is mainly where people and individuals that were doing renovations in the city, that's where that home renovation material and trash would be dumped at. Well, they were dumping it everywhere, but mostly during those days, the city trucks would ride out and make a right and dump over that way. But it was the individual citizen of the city of Dimona that was making these changes to their houses that was dumping that trash. And then they have the Bedouin Arabs that would go around with these big, envelope, and they would get this trash in bags of different building material, and that's where they dump it. So you actually had two sections. One to the right for the city, one to the left that people was dumping. And once they saw the particular material out there, that's where they be just dump, and that's how that took place.
I know that it was individual contractors that were taking advantage of that, and I feel that they had to get a certain permit to dump certain waste in that area because the separation, they didn't just dump trash over there. They didn't have to pick the trash up because the trash is picked up by a regular garbage truck. So these were private contractors that took it, and I'm sure they had to have licensing because they had asbestos and different phosphates and different things that they had to put in that area, separate from the actual trash that was in the city. It seemed like it was two different trashes, and it still is. And incidentally, that's the materials that they moved out first in this current leveling off of the area. They moved out the building materials first, which were actually set on top of the burial site. Well, I'm not sure, but it was such a volume of this type of refuge that it would have took over the actual trash bins that were designated by the city as to collect trash, as opposed to a private contractor dumping his waste there. He would have to take it to another area because the city wouldn't recognize. They wouldn't allow him to use up a city facility to dump his waste in. He would have to take it out on his own, and that would be a part of his contract to get rid of it. Because we could actually see the growth of the expansion. We could see the expansion of this area that had now became a refuge for building materials that was encroaching on our burial site. And adjacent to our burial site, we were in the back of what was originally an Israeli graveyard that was designated to us. That had a fence up there. Now the fence is gone. We have photographs showing the last remaining portion of that fence, but we were given the back portion. Some of those remains were dug up and planted in another area, but in our area we never got that type of notification to remove the remains of our people, because at the time that they started relocating their remains, the Israelis, when I say their, that we still didn't have the proper identification. We didn't have the political status to even be in this land. So therefore, we were not even recognized as citizens, residents. We were just recognized as just some people that were, according to them, were tourists. We were still here on tourist visas.
I went out to the, after seeing the video, I drove out and I saw the equipment. Now at that time, I didn't know exactly where the body was at. I had seen what the sisters had shown on their video, and I went to see myself. And when I went out there, I saw what the equipment was out, the type of equipment, and I knew that type of equipment was land cleaning and sifting. And I happened to be out there when a Bedouin Arab was walking down the street, and I stopped and I asked him, what is all this equipment for? And he explained that they're now cleaning the land off because they're getting ready to build houses. I say houses for who? I said houses for who? For who? Excuse me. Houses for who? He said, does anybody want to buy them? And he said, you see all of this land? He said, you all, they're going to clean this land off, all of this area here. And he mentioned, to my surprise, he mentioned that you all got bodies out there. What are you going to do? And I was, man. So I gave him a ride up, you know, into the city, and he explained all of this trash that you see all through here, they're going to clean it off, because the Bedouin, they actually live out there. And so they know firsthand, because those Arabs, they're the ones in the land of Israel. They do all of the heavy equipment, driving and operating. And so they're family out there, and they knew all the details. And so at that time, I thought to myself, wow, we got to do something. Now, I didn't know personally exactly where the body was at, but I knew one that did, and that's Oman the Kohen. And so I talked with Oman, because I knew that Oman, being a fellow priest, had placed a large number of those bodies out there. So I went and got Oman, and I said, hey, Shos, let's go. Shos is a real warm Hebrew term that we call one another. Shos is real good close friends. When you say Shos, I'm saying someone that's close to my heart. Like, you know, we used to say back in the day, rap blood and all that. But Shos is a Hebrew word, and you may hear me say it from time to time. But nevertheless, I got my Shos, and we went out there, and I said, I want you to show me exactly where these bodies. And when he rode out there and saw the changes that had taken place, he was devastated. And so that's how we discovered it, you understand, because I saw the video, went out there and looked, talked to the Bedouin Arab, and then came back, got Kohen Oman, and he showed me exactly where the bodies was placed, and they had desecrated and smoothed all that land off to where you can't even tell where the bodies was at, you know. No, after I saw the video, I saw the trash that was out there, okay? I hadn't been down there in years. And I don't know if anyone else had been down there. This is a subject that no one was talking about except these two sisters. And when they showed that, then that's what I wanted to see. Because what I saw in that video was a tremendous amount rubbish and trash and what have you?
I was approached by two women of the community. One was a guest from Atlanta who was related to a large family here, and she said that she wanted to know where her relatives were at. So we went down to the burial site in June, and in June, early June of 2013. And we didn't see, as a matter of fact, we had to cross over mountains of trash and this building refuge to actually get to the area, because the only marker there was a tree that I knew of. So we finally got there, and we looked at the burial site, and we were trying to identify. Now, after we went down there is when the other two women made the video, because one of them was related to the two that I took down there, and the other one's sister, she was interned down there, and there was another woman with us whose child was down there. So they were all curious. So we went down there and they filmed that. So this was in June. We went back again upon discovering that it was a desecration in that area. And it was in October that we finally, that it hit us that this is what was taking place after we seen all the heavy equipment down there, which had been down there since October the 6th. But they had already started doing some of the work, initial work. We started actually filming on the 19th of October. And this is how we gathered this footage, began to gather the footage and the evidence that it was a clear-cut case of the desecration of the Hebrew burial site in Dimona, Israel. Well, it was by request. These two women, two sisters, asked me to show them where the area was. We had no idea that it was desecration taking place in that area, other than we had seen the building refuge encroaching on that area. But we didn't have any idea, because we hadn't been down there in years. We had no idea that it was desecration.
Not before watching the video. No, that was a subject that I hadn't thought about, and I don't know of anyone else. I was in shock. I was really shocked to see that the area that had the souls of the remains of our loved one, piles of trash on top of it. I was shocked. I was hurt.
My first impression of the desecration, I was devastated when I seen the actual tracks of the heavy equipment that had rolled over the markers on the graves. I was stunned that they had the nerve, that they had the unconcern, the stupidity to run over a burial site with heavy earth moving equipment. We actually have this footage on film. I was devastated. Well, the immediate actions that we took were we began to notify certain people in the community. I was approached by one of the ministers of the community. His name is Adeev. He's a minister of the community. And he said, "Can you show me the boundaries of the graveyard, because these graves have to be removed?" Now, prior to that, they hadn't asked me any questions about that. And I told him then that I would not participate in the desecration of that area, nor did I have the right to show anybody anything, in the removal of those remains, and he told me his actual words were, okay, I understand what you mean, but we're going to go on with it anyway. Unbeknownst to him, it's against Israeli law to remove any remains of anyone in this land without express permission of the family. That's law. After we seen what was taking place, we knew that we needed some type of professional legal consultation to confront this problem that was developing at the moment.
I was very emotional because the blatant disrespect of the remains of those soldiers that had came to this land to establish this community, this kingdom, and build this organization, this movement. We all left America and everything that we thought of, everything that we had. All of us wasn't broke and struggling in America. And I can speak to myself, I was not broke. I wasn't born in a poor family. I had a father and a mother, and they was very well off. We had everything that you could think of and more. So as far as I was concerned, I was saved. But the objective of me coming to establish the kingdom and to develop the entire community was what I had grown up in. You see, I marched out there with Martin Luther King. I was in riots, you see, and I knew and I felt personally the whip of the master during the 60s and those earlier years. So the reason that I gave up everything, I had a degree in electronics, a communication specialist. I worked in corporate America. My father owned the business, my mother owned the business. It was mom, dad, brother, sister, cat, dog, everything. And we was complete, structured American family. So I didn't feel I needed salvation. As far as I was concerned, I was saved. But when I came into the truth and understanding of the kingdom and the knowledge of the Hebrews, that touched the core of my souls. And that, to me, it felt like it was the connection to what I was searching for. And so those individuals that came with me, a lot of those brothers and sisters have given their lives for this. They died in this land to establish this kingdom under the auspice of God himself. And so when I see that their remains, you understand, was just tossed out like the garbage. And on top of that, we fought in all of this trash and all of this building and all of these construction, and we go out and we film tractor prints all over the graves and some of the graves crushed down. I was completely devastated. Yes, absolutely.
How soon after the actual desecration did you go public?
My discovery, our discovery of this, I called Cohen Oman and we talked. We decided we had to do something. But we decided that we needed to get legal help. Okay? And he called me and mentioned about this phone call from one of the members of the community. What did I think about it? And I asked him, I said, when have they said anything to you? He said, it's been years. I said, when have anyone from the official community position had any dealings with you? He said, it's been years. You know what? I said, I think it's been some corruption taking place. Because for them to come to one of us, me or Kohen, they know our staunch position is about the God of Israel. I said, it's something up. I said, we're going to have to get some legal understanding on this. And from there, that's when Kohen mentioned that he had a friend that knew a good, attorney. And that's where we began to seek legal assistance.
Well, I can't remember the actual date, but it was almost immediately afterward. When we say public, we started letting our people know in the community that didn't know anything about it. There were certain individuals that were in position of what we call what I call so-called leadership that knew about this, but they hadn't alerted the people. And when we began to alert the people, they tried to silence what we were saying, you know, like tried to divert the people, but they knew exactly what was going on. And I picked up some type of deception, some type of deceptive practices that they were trying to initiate on the people. I take this personal. I take the desecration personal because I have my biological mother is buried down there. My biological daughter is buried down there. I have a grandson that's buried down there. So I take this very personal, you know, and their attempt to cover this up or skirt this issue. So this is a very emotional, high charge, no nonsense situation with me in dealing with this.
When I saw what had taken place, I felt in my heart and soul, you know, it was one of those what you call life-changing event. It's something, you know, where something takes place in your life and it changes you. It was a spirit that moved on me, that I felt that I needed to do something. And I didn't go into thoughts of why this hadn't been done, who didn't do that. Right now, this is taking place, and I felt I needed to do something. That's it. You know, it wasn't any motivation or stimulation. Here's a problem, let's fix it. And so I know there's not many men and women that I could call on, but I knew one soul that could ride with me, and that was Oman and Kohen. And he and I got together, and that's where we began to strategize. Wow. You know, that's one of those situations that, without just going into some serious nasty words, that's a damnable shame. The community's reaction. What was the community reaction? The community reaction was, I was told that this individual made phone calls to other individuals not to join in with us. Don't protest, don't support us. Then I was told that there were individuals that were sending text messages around telling the people that don't support Avisur Kohen, don't support Oman and Kohen and what they're doing concerning the burial ground. Now, this is the point that makes that a damnable shame, is the individual that actually sent the text message, they have loved ones that's buried out there in their trash. And it's amazing to even sit and think that anyone in this community would stand against this that we're doing. And that's what the community position is. They've gone too far. We did a radio broadcast and the community has gone so far as to say that we are just a bunch of rebels and don't support what we're doing. You see, this project is a project that is a project under the Divine Ministry of Justice at Jerusalem. And so the Burial Ground Project is a project that is under that ministry. You understand? This is not a personal issue. This is a national issue. You understand?
Well, the answer is simple. Because it was just the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do, and giving honor and respect to our ancestors and our people that paved the way on this journey. Well, first of all, the community was nonchalant in this whole approach. When I say nonchalant, not that the people were nonchalant, but those who have hijacked this movement and made themselves the leaders over the people, where they were not elected as leaders over the people, but were selected as to be leaders over the people, who have proven that they are not leaders over the people, and that they sent out text messages saying, do not support what we are doing. And this all came from the initiative of a known pedophile who notified the leadership that he felt that it was some type of protest and staging. They believed him without even coming to ask the Ministry of Justice what was taking place. Now, they sent out these text messages, and one of the text messages that was sent out came from one of the ministers, the minister of Arad, Eliyahu, who himself has a child down in that valley somewhere buried. I remember very well when we had a measles plague, or they said it diagnosed it as measles. I don't know what type of virus it was in the early 90s that came through, and it took some of our children away, and one of the children was his child. Now here's a man that sends out a message not to support something that would even, he doesn't even have the guts or the manhood to say, hey, I'm not following that order wherever it came from. If it didn't come from him or he initiated it himself, has he forgotten that he has a child down there? What about, does he care about his own offspring? I was there in the hospital, in Soroka Hospital, when he lost his baby that day. I remember his wife in the hospital. I remember she stayed with the sisters even after her baby had passed away to assist them, because it was a time of great sorrow and grieving in our community. I remember my next door neighbor, Natan Ben Amishadai, and he lost his daughter during that same plague, and how the city of Mispeh Ramon didn't have one victim of that plague until they took the vaccination. There were over 150 children in this community that had this virus at the same time. From what? They quarantined us off. It was a plague. It hadn't even broke forth in the Israeli community, but they quarantined us because they were trying to put a cap on this plague. And he has the nerve, the Uncle Tom nerve, to say, do not support the Ministry of Divine Justice, that he texts this message all over this country. We have the text message. We're going to put it on screen with his name on it. And he sent it out. I say that's one of the most cowardly acts that anybody can do. When you don't have respect for your ancestors, when you don't have respect for your wife or your husband or your children or your child, that you would sit up and go against your moral fiber because you didn't initiate this, or you have another position. When we ascended to this position out of necessity, this is why we got here. And your position of no position is in fact a position of cowardness. To turn against your own people and not being able to raise up the bar and say, look, it's wrong what you all doing. You desecrated this area. Put everything aside, but no, you want to try to prove a point. But we're going to let the world know that you a coward. We're going to let the world know that you a chump. We're going to let the world know that you not no leader, that you don't care about your people, that you ain't anointed, that you ain't a man of God, and that you a fraud, and everybody that's with you and feel like you is a coward, a slithering, spineless, jellyback coward.
You know, I was, you know, when you sit and think about something of this magnitude, what we're working to rectify, it's just hard to believe that anybody that have loved ones buried out there in that trash would oppose anyone effort to rectify that. You know, this, ever since we've been involved with this process, it has pulled at some of the very nerve strings at the core of my soul. But when I was told that Minister Eliyahu had sent this text message to many people not to support us, that was one of those times that it took great restraint not to go approach him. Because I know that he has a child out there. And what we're doing is not just for our own personal children, it's for all of their children. And to think that somebody in this movement will have the audacity to work against us, that's on the level of straight blasphemy of the God of Israel. And when we came over here from the captivity to be a people freed up from the captivity and the thinking and the spirit of the captivity, and then to get to this point and then to act like that against us when we working for the whole, you showing me that you still have the mindset of the captivity. Now let me just talk to you now, because you all need to know this. You talk about the captivity and the slave, and you talk about Hebrews. But let me just make something clear to you. Everybody running around, these individuals running around talking about we the children of God, we the people, this the kingdom. And then when it's time to exemplify a kingdom mindset, all you come up with is the slave mentality. Now let's talk about the crux of not only these people, but let's look at the situation of all Africans in the diaspora. Why is it that we came from Songhai, Timbuktu, Mali? Why is it that we come from the most richest, wealthiest, powerful land on earth, and today we're some of the brokest, the most weakest knuckleheads running around talking about, ooh, Mojo. Mojo ain't got nothing. Because of why? The Willie Lynch, let's making of a slave. Now I have to talk to you. And I'm the one that not many of them like. Because I tell you the truth. I would rather for you to know the truth and hate me and live a success in truth than to love me because I'm your partner telling you the sweet, smooth things. But it was that Willie Lynch that stood out there on the River Jane and talked to the other slave owners and told him, look, we got a problem with these slaves. They trying to escape and they tearing up all of our stuff and we losing good money and sleep because these niggas is out here doing all these things. But I got something that'll help all of us out. And if you apply this, it'll work for hundreds of years. And here in 2013, we're trying to accomplish this objective today in 2014, and these individuals are working against us because they still living today under the slave mentality. And the number one thought in that document that he said at all costs, they must learn to love, trust, and respect only us. And so now I look, and this minister, supposed to be minister of the people, leader in the community, and here it is in Israel. We've come here and you still exemplify in 2014 that you're living under the effects of the slave mind, that you love, trust, and respect only the white man, and they're siding up with the City of Dimona. They're siding up with the people that own the company that's desecrating the grave, and they're telling everybody to disregard what we're saying because we crazy and we don't know what we're talking about. And this priest put the people in the ground himself, his mother and father and relative and our children, and you're going to tell them, don't listen to them. You slaves. Y'all are just a bunch of slaves.
The legal steps that we've taken to resolve this situation is we filed a class action suit. It has now became public knowledge. It's in the public domain that we are fighting this legally. That we have a lawyer, a law firm rather, to support us. We've retained a lawyer. Nobody gave us any help to retain this lawyer, and we're going to fight it in court. And we are willing to go all the way to the Supreme Court in Israel. And if the Supreme Court does not hear it, we are even willing to go to the World Court in The Hague, Netherlands.
Are the legal steps to resolve this situation enough for you?
No. Because there's a spiritual aspect connected with this. And the spiritual aspect is the nerve of, I have to go back to those who have hijacked this movement and set themselves up to be the leaders of this movement that we are in. They need to all be impeached. They need to all be fronted off and identified as agent provocateurs. They're cowards, that they're still involved in counterintelligence, COINTELPRO, updated 2014, that they're working against their own people, that they are working for some government agency, whether it's the FBI or some agency, to divert the true worship of the God of this land. They have put the stumbling blocks there so we would curse ourselves. They have kept us divided. They have sown discord in the midst of the people. And I know for a surety, for a fact, that no position is taken in this community unless they first go to the head of the community, Ben Ami. This is who they have to get their instruction from. And instead of questioning him about why he's not doing anything about this, they're questioning those who have stood up valiantly for the truth to confront this Goliath. This is a David and Goliath revisited story that we have now embarked on. And we have the assistance, we know, of the ancestors. We are calling upon their spirits to come and assist us in this season. We have called and we are invoking their spirits in this land.
We have obtained legal counsel due to the fact that when you're dealing with the European, protesting in the streets not going to get anything. You know, you all out with your sign and a bunch of people hollering and screaming, and the key people that can make these changes are very wealthy and very powerful. And they're sitting in the comfort of their luxurious mansion or private jet or yacht watching you out there sweat and get ate up by the flies. That's not going to cause an effect. But what'll cause an effect is you get in his pocketbook, his money. You start, you know, cutting his money flow off. And in his system, he has a network of demons and wizards. So you have to call on, you know, one of his wizards, better known as a lawyer. And what you have to do is get a big wizard to go in there, a lawyer, and deal with his laws on your behalf. And all it takes to activate them is money. You come with the money, you can buy a wizard to go in their courtroom and do what needs to be done to cause a change. Now, on this note about wizardry, why is it that we feel, that I feel, my team feels so adamant about this? When you're talking about dead bodies, we are strong believers in spirits. The reason why we're so committed in rectifying this atrocity is that the spirits of those individuals are walking. And that will cause great curses and damnation if we don't fix this. You see, I mentioned earlier that we were working on everybody's behalf. You see, some people really don't believe in spirits. I was born in Georgia, in the South, where we was dealing with roots and black magic and voodoo, and all that spiritual abilities came to us by the powers of the God of Israel, where we can call on spirits. All of y'all supposed to know about when Yeshua needed help, he called Elijah. And those men came to him when everybody thought they was dead. They had actually transitioned to a higher level of existence. And they was working in a spiritual realm on our behalf. Well, so are those souls that's down there. You see, we pray to those souls because we know they exist. At what point do you actually begin to act in a manner that you know those spirits are actually live and living and working on your behalf? That's now. That's what we're doing. You see, we went and prayed and asked them to assist us in this endeavor, and we called on the spirit of the God of Israel because we knew the giant that we was going up against. And the power of the God of Israel is the stone that took the giant down. And so here we are today. We're moving in a great speed and necessity to bring peace and comfort to those loved ones that have made transition in order that we don't get cursed. We don't have but a matter of time to deal with this. You see, if it's not seen that somebody have the spiritual understanding on what to do in these days, we'll all be cursed. You asked me earlier what I feel about the Israelis. I don't have no problem like that with the Israelis. Because what we're talking about, this entire land could get blessed. That's a big entire issue when you're talking about spirits. But if we don't move expediently and if we don't take care of this business, do you know those same spirits in anger will come against us? That's the vastness of this. And it's a damnable shame. It's a damnable shame that this minister will have the audacity to speak against us. You see, on a bigger note, it's not just me and Kohen and other individuals on our team. It's the spirits of these ancestors that's crying out. Because now they're going down there rolling tractors over the grave. Why is it we haven't done anything 10 years ago? Why we didn't do anything 20 years ago? Because it's being done now, and we have been activated by those spirits to do this on their behalf. And everybody that's involved with this, anybody that come against us, it will be those spirits of your loved one that'll come against you.
We don't even know. But we know that the perimeter that they have established now based on misinformation from the leadership of the community is not the original area. It's not the original circumference of that. If they really wanted to know, they should have came and asked me, because I know. You know, I know what it is and the area approximately where it is. But they wouldn't come because of their pride and their deceit and their ability to attempt to undermine anything that was a people's initiative. They tried to deceive the people. They even made decisions. It's recorded on the radio in Hebrew. We got it in Hebrew. It was recorded nationally that Ben-Ami made a decision and said that they could remove the remains, which is against the law. See, we understand this, that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And we're going to see where justice, this arc, bends toward in this upcoming season. Because all those that are the adversaries of truth and what we are doing know for surety that you can't win all the time. And you're going to have a fight on your hands on this.
from 1972 to 2001, you're looking at roughly 100, 150, somewhere, give or take, 100, 150 souls in that location. Legally, you need to serve a cease and desist order, an injunction that the company stop working.
I feel that there needs to be an injunction in this particular area, but crimes of this sort, that there has to be, it's already laws that are bigger, that encompass this. They're really in violation of these laws because they thought they was dealing with some hillbillies. That's what they thought. I'm not trying to be derogatory, but they thought that they were dealing with somebody that really just didn't know and didn't have the wherewithal to seek legal counsel, didn't know the laws, because for so many years our leaders did not represent us properly. And they made deals on the side. They cut all kind of deals that were in their best interest. And the people have never taken it on the initiative to say, wait a minute, on this issue, I'm defending myself. I don't need you to come down there and speak for me. I don't need you to come down there and translate nothing for me. I don't need you to do nothing. We've taken this upon ourselves. We have seized the opportunity and the time to do this. And for all of those that are still uttering these words of disunity and oinking this madness, your day is coming. Well, there are laws in place that threaten imprisonment and fines already, but the law is no stronger than the ability of someone to enforce it. These crimes were reported to the police department in Dimona, in Arad, and in Mispeh Ramon, and even we saw an injunction in the city of Beersheba. They spin us around and said the only way that you can get anything of this nature done in this country is you have to have legal representation, and that's one of the reasons why we had to get legal representation, to get through all of the red tape so we could actually enforce these laws.
Yes, we filed a police report because what they've done already have broken criminal laws. And so being advised legally, we had to go and make a criminal report to the police what they have done in the desecration of these graves. Desecration of graves in Israel is a criminal offense with prison term for the offender. The priest's responsibility was to place those bodies out there, say the prayers, when one had made deceased, made transition. The priest, a very, very powerful entity inside of the kingdom. The priest's number one role is to cause a difference between the holy and the profane, to cause a righteous change in the people. Now, this is something that's been highly misunderstood in the midst of the people because of the lackluster job that the priest has done over the years. When you ask the individual saint, what is the role of the priest, you get 1,000 different answers. But the role of a priest is to cause a righteous change in the people, making a difference between the holy and the profane. And who is the first individual that you must change? Is yourself. Now, you look at some of these priests that have gotten caught up in some of the most despicable, disgraceful acts as a priest. And then the priests, we have studied intensely the laws and instructions of the God of Israel. And you are to keep those laws and instructions upon you at all time, in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit. So no matter where you at, you can make sure that the people are excuse me, the people are living in accordance to the laws and instruction of the Creator. And you have priests that are running around doing all manner of damnable things, drinking, taking other men's wives, laying with children, pedophilia. And at the same time, what I'm saying, it's nothing unheard of. I'm not telling something that don't nobody know. The people know that. And they still get to function in the midst of the people. Liars, whoremongers, pedophiles, thieves. They're all out there, and these individuals know this. What you have to understand is that priests are God in the midst of the people. The magnitude of being the priest on a spiritual level is that you have to be the individual that carry the spirit of God in the midst of people. You can't be caught up in all kind of folly and dumb stuff and silliness. And you look at the state of the kingdom here in Dimona, and you can point your finger and say the priest is very, very instrumental at this place being at this spiritual state. Because the priest, being that they're God in the midst of people, and the number one objective of the priest is to cause righteous change in the people, to separate the holy and the profane. And we have all of these unholy situations that have taken place, many of it. And this is nothing that the people are not aware of. They know this. This is the issue. I'll give you an example. I'm up in the city of Tiberias, and Kohen Elikaz is a priest. We were one night going to get some grapefruit, and these were some unusual grapefruit. I never had a sweet grapefruit. Something was strange about these grapefruit. Well, nevertheless, he said, "Chose, you want to go out and help me get the fruit?" I'm like, "Yeah." I started getting dressed, and he said, "No, we're gonna go a little bit later." It was about 2, 3 in the afternoon. So I said, "Okay, no problem." I sat down and relaxed, and I said to myself, "Hey, Cohen, when we going?" He said, "A little bit later." So the sun is going down, so I'm thinking it's Tiberias up north. We probably gonna go into the market and get this fruit. So I asked him again. He said, "A little bit later." So I went and laid down on my bed, and I went to sleep. Well, about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, he said, "Hey, I'll be sure. Let's go get the fruit." And I'm thinking to myself, man, we going to get fruit this late at night? Well, I thought maybe, we were going to do the same thing that we do in Beersheba, another city north of Dimona. You go up there and you get the fruit 3, 4 in the morning. That's the big rigs that bringing it in. So I'm thinking they probably was doing the same thing in Tiberias, since it's a smaller city, 11 o'clock at night. So we get in the car, we grab a bunch of bags and big flour bags, 55 pound bag. And so that's where we got the fruit in. Well, nevertheless, we jump in the car, it's dark, we riding down the road, boogity, and then we coming up into a moshav. And I'm saying, man, this is not the city. I said, this is kind of strange. And I said, Cohen, where are we going to get this fruit? He said, "Don't worry about it, Shows, you with me." Don't worry about it, Shows. I'm worried because, I'm like, where are we getting the fruit from? So finally, he turned the headlights off. He turned the head, and I said, Cohen, what you doing, man? He said, "Shh, be quiet." Then we cut to the left, and we went right into this guy's yard. And he turned the car engine off. And we rolling quietly past this guy's house, and as we go past the house, I can see the Israelis sitting in there watching TV. And there our knucklehead butts out there in the car, rolling by his house in the dark with the lights and the engine off. And I'm about to explode. I'm like, man, where you? And so we ride down into the bottom of this valley, and we in the pitch black dark with a white car. And he jumps out, "Hey, Joe, fill up the bags right quick." And here's the grapefruit tree. And I'm sitting in the car, man, I said, "I don't believe this." And I want to scream, but at the same time, I felt if I screamed, we were going to alert the people, and we wind up going to jail. And so I said, "Man, you need to get your butt." He said, come on, so we do it together. So I said, "You know what, man, and that's how the man was getting the fruit. Stealing the fruit. And you a priest, and you out here stealing. The scripture said that if you do my will, I will make your cup runneth over. He never said that you had to steal. But see, the impact of leaders doing dirt and men that set in position, when they do dirt, their dirt is 10, 20, 100 times worse. And then you look up and you see what's taking place with the community. Now we pulling the doggone lid off the X-Files today because the people needs to know these are the type things that kept those that was pure in heart and righteous and came up here for a serious reason. That's why the community was torn to pieces, because you had these demons running around pretending to be sons and daughters of Yah. Robbie Kohen.
Akamliel HaKohen.
Abir HaKohen.
Ashia HaKohen.
Eliram HaKohen.
Gedalia HaKohen.
Elikaz HaKohen.
Kadishiel HaKohen.
Absalom HaKohen.
Patakia HaKohen. Uziahu HaKohen. Yosef HaKohen.
Adeev HaKohen.